Hello and welcome back to the Welsh Premiership podcast and our weekly preview review show. I'm Haydn back again, and we swapped out Ad this week, and Tobias is back joining me again. So we're going to look quickly back at last week's results and then preview this weekend's big final round, really, with lots to play for still at the top, and those teams just trying to make the playoffs as well. So before moving on, just want to say another thank you to our sponsors at Lekker Food Co. as well that have been sponsoring these videos and allow us to get you some more content. So without further ado then, we'll move on to last week's games and the Eastern Conference. And we'll start with a Friday night fixture. Ebervale hosted RGC at the Cineglass Community Stadium, Eugene Cross Park. And RGC come away 22-21 winners. Bit surprising, really, when you think they were a man down for the majority of the game. Spike, what were your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, you've got to give credit to RGC. They struggled to start the season, but they've built week on week, and 65 minutes a man down is a long time. Yeah, I know RGC obviously then with the centre down, they chucked the back row out in the centre and scrummaged with seven men, and they were still decent in the scrums. The back row I think was outstanding, getting around the park, and they probably deserved the victory at the end of the day. And you got to give Kerry Jones credit, the way he's come in, turned that side around and pushing, and then with a chance of a playoff spot now because of that win.
Yeah, it was a really big victory. I think Ebervale will be really disappointed because they talked about sort of their discipline the last few weeks as sort of been really costing them games. And then when RGC got that red card not long into the game, I think Greg and Ebervale would have been thinking, look, the shoe's on the other foot now, and we really got to be pushing for this victory. But I don't think, obviously Ebervale will be disappointed not to get that win, especially against 14 men. But I don't think RGC ever looked like they were missing a man. I think it sort of galvanised their squad, and the rest of the team made up for that. And I know there's big performances from Fackrell and Owen in the back row, Coughlin in hooker as well. So I know Ebervale's cup competition's been a bit disappointing. Like they've come close, should have won a few more games, but they are there or thereabouts. And it's sort of like what we were saying about RGC earlier in the season. Like Ebervale are there, they've just been little bit unlucky, really, and that's what's cost them a few games. And moving on to Saturday's fixtures, then in the Eastern Conference, so the Welsh Prem Cup. First of all, there was a high-scoring game up at the Wern. Newport come away 52-31 winners against Merthyr. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it was a cracking game, open game. And what I liked is both sides just try to play a bit of rugby. They both comfortable in their playoff spots. Pretty sure they both qualified. So, it was nice to go out. Newport playing like they have all season, though. They like to play a rugby open game. The backs have been outstanding this year. And up front as well, they've been strong. And to put 50 points on Merthyr, who are a very good side, is a cracking result. And I know Tyrone Morris would be very pleased with that.
Yeah, I think what was clear to see from that game is Newport weren't afraid to throw the ball around. And yeah, that led to a few mistakes. And obviously Merthyr scoring 31 points. And you think any side that concedes 31 points away at the Wern, you're going to lose that game. But fair play to Newport, they just went out there with a mindset that we might concede, but we're going to score more than Merthyr. And it's an entertaining way to play, really, a good advert for the league. And I think Merthyr would be disappointed because, as I said, like if you score 31 points at home, like you never think you're going to be on the wrong side of the scoreboard, but still lose by 20 points. But I don't think it's like embarrassing by any means. Newport are just on fire at the moment, really. And we spoke last week about the influence of the X7s players that on their team, like Dal Smith, Owen Jenkins, Ben Roach at 8, obviously, that made our team of the week. Obviously, we mentioned the 10-12 axis, Reed and O'Brien as well. And I think they do look a lot better with the two ball players in there, and they get the ball wide a lot for those players, those quick boys on the wings to do the damage.
Yeah, and I think maybe they missed that 10-12 access the last few weeks where I know Reed's been away with Dragons A games and so on. And I think bringing that back this week, you could see the way they play with the two playmakers on the pitch and the chances they create for their wide men, and it works for them.
Yeah. So moving on to the last game in the Eastern Conference last week, then It's a disappointing result for Pontypridd, which means they have to beat RGC now this weekend to get that playoff spot. Cardiff came to Sardis Road and they beat them 45-6, which they'll be really disappointed with because obviously it's a massive derby and Cardiff have struggled at Sardis Road in recent years. So on the other side of the fence then for Cardiff, that's a massive win for them and they'll give them a lot of confidence now going into the last game in the playoffs. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, like you say, it is very disappointing result for Ponty. Not the loss as much, but the way they lost, I think. 45 points against Cardiff. I know Bernal will be very disappointed with that. But, I know they had a few injuries and so on. But there's squad depth there. And obviously they didn't perform this week. And the pressure's on them now coming up for this weekend. They've got to win to qualify. But on the other hand, Cardiff are excellent. Dan Fisher 10 running the show once again. I know Cameron Winnett was in a fullback this week and performed very well. So fair dues to Cardiff. They could have gone quite lightly. They know they've got a home quarter final. They could have gone, oh, we'll give it a go. But it's Ponty's a big game, and they've turned up, played, and they've smashed them really.
Yeah, like they had a few Cardiff rugby players dropping in, like Sam Moore, Dan Fish, Alan Lawrence, but they brought in quite a few new faces as well. Like I know Cameron Winnett's not played much rugby this season, and there's a few boys that have been sort of on the bench or like in and out of the team. And I think that just shows Cardiff's squad depth that they probably got another full 15 players that could come into that squad and probably still would beat just about anybody in the league. So yeah, I think that'll be scary for further teams going into these playoffs now.
Yeah, and I think maybe coming into the playoffs, like we said, Cardiff a sport for choice in a way. I know they got the access with Cardiff rugby obviously, but the squad they have there anyway is a proper strong squad. So it'll be interesting to see now maybe the size they do pick coming up into the knockout games because obviously they're in with a good chance of winning this cup. So.
And moving back to the Western Conference then, and the Friday night games, and we'll start off with league leaders Aberavon that continued their run of fine form with a victory over Carmarthen Quins, 22-17 at the Talbot Athletic Ground. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a pretty close game. Quins are a good side, solid to break down, but fair play Aberavon. Played well, scoring 4 tries, I think. I got to say, Joe Thomas playing a 10, he was outstanding. Banfield was excellent as well. And some of the tries Abraham scored were really nice tries. And, they're looking good. They're on a roll now, coming into the knockout stages. Obviously, they'll have Llandovery this week, which should be a big game. But, they're building nicely. I think Hyatt will be pretty pleased with the way they played.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, you mentioned Joe Thomas there. They got 3 really good options outside half now. Obviously, we haven't seen much of Alan Thomas at all, who was their first choice the season before COVID. You got young Dan Edwards there as well that's been involved with the Ospreys A. He looks a really, really good talent. And obviously Joe Thomas as well that can fit in the centre. Combined with that, I know Banfield's been sort of playing as a second playmaker as well. Like a lot of when they were going wide, he'd sort of slot in between the 2 centres as opposed to obviously you normally got your fullback outside your centres. And I think that really worked for them. Obviously, he was throwing some good passes over the top, so some not good passes, but we were just coming off because obviously when you got those when you just sort of throw it and you've got numbers out there, and I don't know what it was with Aberavon, they just seem to have an overlap all the time. I think they like to play with their back rows, particularly Lloyd Evans is wide quite a bit, and I think that's probably to do with his sevens background as well, and we know how much of a good ball player he is. Obviously he scored that try as well, and yeah, I think all their tries just came from those wide channels, really. And if not scoring from breaks down the wings, then scoring off the next phase. So I think it's really good to see what Jason Hyatt's, the way he wants to play, similar to Newport, really, is just get the ball out wide and hopefully cause some damage. And that seemed to work. But yeah, on the other hand, Carmarthen Quins, not bad at all, but sort of just went away exactly how we thought it would go last week, didn't they? They were just not on Aberavon's level quite yet.
Yeah, and like you said, that Abraham side, you touched on it, they're all ball players. From 1 to 15, I think all of them could, they're good on the ball. So they're going to the Talbot Athletic Ground as well. No one's going there expecting really to come away with a big win against Aberravon. But fair play, Quins 5 points, a losing bonus point to come away with as well. It's not a bad result for them. And again, they qualified now. They're in the quarterfinals, and they'll be building nicely. There's a good test run before coming into the knockout rounds now. So yeah, it's not a bad result for them really.
Yeah, and we know obviously, as you mentioned, they both made the playoffs already. But I know if Llandovery can get a win over Aberravon this weekend, then Aberravon would move down into second, and they'd have to face the third place side from the Eastern Conference. And obviously, it looks like Carmarthen will get third place in the Western Conference. So maybe could be a sort of dress rehearsal for the playoffs, a good hard game. Whereas obviously we'll move on to Llandovery now, and they had a bit of an easier game against Bridgend, 27-7. We expected that to be a little bit tighter, didn't we?
Yeah, and especially because Llandovery made quite a few changes. They brought some new faces in, give some younger boys maybe a chance. And fair play to them, they took their chance. 27-7 at the Brewery Field for boys who haven't really played that much first team rugby this season is a cracking result for them. And I think the way they played, you could tell on the pitch they wanted it more. I'll be honest with you, I don't know if Bridgend didn't look as up for it, for a game, and especially with Bridgend chasing this fourth spot in the group as well. You thought they would have given them a bit more of a challenge. Knowing Llandovery had given new boys a look in and that, but yeah, fair play Llandovery, they were excellent.
Do you think Bridgend might have had one eye on this weekend coming now already?
Yeah, I think they knew this weekend would be the big one, but I think maybe once they knew the way Llandovery wanted to go to make changes, and freshen up, there may have been an opportunity there for them, but obviously they didn't go and grasp it. But if you look at the side Bridgend picked, it's not as if they were resting people for this week. They went pretty much full strength. So I think Steve Jones will be disappointed because it was a poor performance, and building up to this week, obviously is a big one. At least would have wanted a better performance than that.
And moving on to the final game last weekend, then, and this was we thought this would be a big win. Obviously, Llanelli chasing their first win in the competition, and we thought this would be their best chance to get it, really. But Swansea come away 27-19 winners, and sort of the story of the cup so far, really, for Llanelli is play well, but just not well enough to get that win.
Yeah, and I think maybe you say the story of the cup so far, but I think is Llanelli have not played for half hour or 40 minutes and not been in the game. I think Swansea went 21-0 up at half time, I think it was. So to be 21-0 down, and they brought it back to 21-19. It was 2 points in the end. Swansea had a few late penalties to go on a win. But it's happened a few times. I know when Llanelli played Aberravon, I think Aberravon were 3-4 tries up and they come back late. So they just start, and it's obviously it's hard to do, but they start playing earlier on. They keep themselves in games because they're not losing by many points anymore. And obviously they're building nicely, and hopefully, they'll have another go this weekend before the league starts. Hopefully they'll pick up a few wins. But yeah, fair dues to Swansea as well. They have to win this game to be with a chance really of putting themselves in a good position for the quarterfinals. But they've done that now, and they're in that fourth spot at the minute. So yeah.
Yeah, and obviously for Swansea, sort of losing to Llanelli this week would have been sort of catastrophic, and I think that showed in the way they played. Really, going 21-0 up early on, they did get a little bit complacent, as you mentioned, but yeah, they couldn't have afforded to lose that game, really, especially with obviously Bridgend, Llandovery the day before. If Bridgend could have got a result there, so yeah, they obviously couldn't afford to lose that game, and I think that showed really. I think they was always in control of the game, and yeah, Llanelli just unlucky really. Like they are there or thereabouts, but they got a big test now this week to finish off the league and to finish off the cup. Sorry, and yeah, it'll be a mountain to climb, really, won't it? But there's nothing to play for, really. So maybe that can benefit Llanelli this week. Moving on to this weekend's fixtures then. And yeah, as we mentioned, there's some pretty tasty and important clashes coming up. We'll start in the Eastern Conference then. And a first game that obviously I think someone's going to be covering for the Welsh Prem Pod, bring in a match report and live updates from Cardiff hosting Merthyr at Cardiff Arms Park. And now this is a big game because if Cardiff can get a win over Merthyr and Newport lose to Ebu at Newport Stadium, then Cardiff could leapfrog them into the top spot of the Eastern Conference. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, Cardiff going to be ready to pounce. They know an opportunity could be there to get the top spot. They're in for a tough test, though. Like you said, Merthyr, a very strong side. They're third place as well. But yeah, they have made a few changes. I know there's a couple of youngsters coming back into the side, maybe getting a bit of opportunity. At the back row, especially, I know Alex Mann's in his 7, and Mackenzie Martin making his debut 6 as well for them. So they're pretty excited about those pair playing, I know. But yeah, Cardiff will be well up for it. I expect them to come away with a win and, maybe to pounce if Newport do mess up.
Yeah, I know Mackenzie Martin, very young, isn't he? Still in college, and I think a lot of people around the Cardiff setup are very are looking forward to seeing him what he can do in a Cardiff shirt. And I think that's brilliant. So that's a good story from coming out of Cardiff, because there's a lot of talk about them bringing a lot of Cardiff rugby players into the squad, but it is also a good development pathway as well. And it is good to see some of those younger players coming through. And Mackenzie Martin isn't just sort of like a Cardiff Rugby Academy player that they've brought in. He's a Cardiff boy, went to school in Cardiff, goes to college in Cardiff. So it is good to see players like that coming through. I know Dan Fish on the bench again this week. So if the game's tight, or if Merthyr can get ahead, then you'll have likes of Dan Fish coming off the bench to do some damage, and we know what he can do off the bench. We just know how good he is. Really, he's top quality, isn't he? And Merthyr are a pretty strong team, to be fair. You look at their back five of the pack. Sorry, Locke and Bradbury in the second row again. McBride, Dav, Stonelake at flanks. We know what they'll do. They're physical units, and they'll just sort of go out there to batter Cardiff. And yeah, that'll be a good battle actually. Mackenzie Martin up against Paddy McBride, two blind sides. Two very physical players from what we heard. Mackenzie Martin was very physical, and well, we know what Paddy McBride brings from what he's done this season already. So I think it will be an interesting battle. I know Merthyr have gone for Ben Jones at fullback again. Obviously, the ex-Wales 20s outside half. And I do like him at fullback. I think he gives them a little bit a better option. He can relieve a lot of pressure, which is what Merthyr do quite a lot, to be honest. They like to soak up pressure. They don't mind being on the back foot. They don't mind defending. And but then obviously when you've got those players like Ben Jones in there, they can sort of turn defense to attack really quickly. So I do like having him in there. So I think that'll be a close game, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Merthyr pip that one. Actually, I think Merthyr will be looking for a really strong finish to the season, because I don't think anybody's really talked about Merthyr as being at the bottom, and nobody's really talked about Merthyr being at the top. They've just been there or thereabouts, and I think the chief will really be asking his players to go out there. If we can beat Cardiff, you'll put a real big marker down for the playoffs.
Yeah. Fucking yeah, like oh, he froze. Yeah, like you said, it's a good dress rehearsal for Merthyr. Coming in, whenever the playoffs will be, we're not exactly sure yet. But coming into the league campaign as well, good result here will give them momentum coming into it when the Prem does start. So they'll be up for it, and they'll give Cardiff a good game. Yeah.
And it looks as though they'll have one of either Aberavon or Llandovery, so they'll need a big performance this week, so they won't want to be going into that game undercooked at all, will they? Moving on then, and we mentioned them briefly already. Newport host Ebervale at Newport Stadium, and obviously we know this game's a big Gwent derby, and it doesn't really need anything added on top. But yeah, Newport have to win really to make sure they stay top and get a favourable draw going into the playoffs. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, you've got to fancy Newport, haven't you? Top of the league. They've been playing excellent rugby against a struggling Ebel side. Don't get me wrong, Ebel will be up for it. Obviously, it's a big Gwent derby. They'll know it's their last game of the campaign, of the cup campaign, sorry. So they'll want to finish off on a high. Like I said, they'll want to find a bit of momentum ready to start fresh come the Premiership. But yeah, the way Newport play, you look at the side they got out again, is pretty much full strength of what they got available. I think Luke Crane will be a bit of a miss. I know he was excellent last week at scrum half. Still, the players they've got there. We've talked about Reid and O'Brien. Josh Rocher, Skinner in the second row has been excellent all year for them. So it's a strong side, and yeah, I think Newport will come away with a good victory there.
Yeah, I think it's what could have been for Ebervale, really, isn't it? And I think I think if they didn't struggle with injuries through this season, I think they could have been one of those last two teams. I don't think they would have been above Newport or Cardiff, but I think realistically they could have been in with a shot at the playoffs. And I think it's just sort of disappointing to see. We know they've struggled. It's not completely been injuries, like they've really struggled with their discipline, and a lot of it has been self-inflicted. But we know they've got a really talented team down there. Loads of like young backs, and they've got some ex regional players in there as well. So it's a real exciting mix going forward. But I think they will be disappointed with how their cup campaign's gone, because I think Greg Woods will know that he has a good enough side there to be in the mix of the playoffs. Likes of Dav Howells, John Evans has obviously only recently just signed, but I think where they've struggled is up front, really. Obviously losing Joe Franchi, first choice hooker and your club captain, like halfway through the cup season is not ideal, really. And then you got youngsters, like Connor Chapman, like Mikhail Blake. They're good players, but they are young and they're not really experienced in the Premiership. And I think that this experience will help them now going forward into the Premiership campaign. But I think they were maybe just that's what probably the reason why they couldn't make the playoffs. Moving into the last game then, and RGC host Pontypridd up at Parc Arias. And this is a massive game, isn't it? It's just winner takes all. Whoever wins this game will go into the playoffs in that fourth position. I think RGC will be glad that it's up at Parc Arias. Obviously, Ponty having to make that long trip up. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, like I said, I think home advantage could favour RGC. I'd put RGC slight favourites going into it. You know, they'll have a big crowd there. Ponty be travelling. They won't use that as an excuse, I know. If you look at the size, I think Ponty have brought a bit of experience back. You know, Diggy Bird's back in the 10. Haven't played in a while, but they still got the likes of Stuckey, you know, Richard, Christian Parker, Dickamidis. You know, there's a lot of experienced guys in there who've played in big games like this before. So maybe those experienced heads will help with the youngsters they got in. You know, I know Brad Roderick, Dave Buckland, there's a few in there. But yeah, I think it'll be a tight game. You know, I think it could be a one score. It could be a late score, but I think I'd fancy RGC the way they've been playing last few weeks. And I think the heart they'll take from beating Airball last week, you know, man down for 65 minutes. I think the togetherness maybe they'll have from that. And I think they're only going to build on games like that now and gain more confidence as they go on. So I think I do fancy RGC, you know, the form and the run they're on to come away with it.
Yeah, I think it's obvious to see really the two approaches, isn't it? Whereas RGC have gone for a pretty much unchanged team. Like not many changes at all. They've sort of kept the core of their squad together, and Pontypridd have sort of gone back to the drawing board really, and they've brought in a host of experienced players. Really, you mentioned Diggy Bird, it's massive for them. Obviously, we lost Bernal 2 weeks ago, and you're thinking, oh, they're struggling for an outside half now. But with Diggy coming back in there, he won't be undercooked at all. He's so like experienced and just knows the Premiership inside out, and I think that'll just be massive for them. Obviously, you mentioned Shellard, Chris Dickamidis, who's obviously been playing week in, week out anyway. Is it Llywak ap Mervyn?
Yeah.
Fullback. Obviously, he played in the Premiership before with Newport as well. So I think they've gone for experience over youth this time out. With obviously you mentioned the exceptions of Roderick and a few others that are young, but they've performed in the Premiership this season. I think Roderick's been one of their standout players, really, and a few of the youngsters. And I think, again, looking forward, I know Pontypridd won't have an eye on the Premiership. They'll be fully focused on this game. But looking forward, they've got a really exciting mix of sort of those older heads and some youngsters as well. So I think RGC definitely the favourites for this weekend, but it'd be interesting to see how Ponty go with bringing all those experienced heads back in.
Yeah, and just to touch upon what you said there about Brad Roderick being one of Ponty's better players this season, I think you've got to praise the way he's come back this season. You know, he's with Bridgend the year before COVID. He's with the Ospreys. Fortunately, got released from the Ospreys, but the way he's come back playing for Ponty this year, you know, you've got to give him praise because he's been outstanding for them. Yeah. To come back maybe from a situation he was in like that to prove how good a player he is, credit to the boy.
And fair play to Burnell as well, the coach up at Ponty, because he's really put faith in Roderick and Morgan Richards and Dav Buckland and a few more as well. Boys that have been or left academy systems, and he snapped them up really, and that's what the Premiership's there for, really, and that safety net. Those players dropping out of academy, but still being able to play a decent standard of rugby. So moving on to the Western Conference then, and Carmarthen host Llanelli at home. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think you got to fancy Kamara. I think the Quins have gone pretty much unchanged or full strength side of what they've got available, at least anyway. So naturally, come in, made a few changes. But look, both sides are hopefully will want to just go and play rugby. You know, Quinn's first spot stays, they can't lose there, they can't go any further up. So naturally, no, they can't go through, but they'll want to build. So hopefully both sides will go out, enjoy. Maybe now, naturally, you know, they're out, they know they're bottom of the group, but there's no pressure. I think maybe no pressure now. They can just go and try and show what they can do. And hopefully a good result will come their way and they can build on it. But yeah, I'd fancy Quins, but you know, I hope Llanelli will be thereabouts and give them a good game and just play some nice rugby.
Yeah, I think it's hard to disagree with you. We know what Llanelli have been trying to do, and hopefully they do manage to build on their second half showing against Swansea. And obviously, we mentioned they didn't start very well. Other games have started very well and then finished poorly. So hopefully they can combine those 80-minute performances, which is what Johnny and Phil and Johan have been talking about, is trying to combine that 80-minute performance together. And I think if they do get an 80-minute performance against Carmarthen, they can get the victory. But yeah, obviously moving on to Carmarthen, then yeah, the talent they got in their squad, it's something really when your second choice, they're starting their second choice 9 really, and it's Rodri Davis, who was obviously a regional player up until last year. So and yeah, the talent they got in their team still, with the likes of like Lewis Millen, this been outstanding the last few weeks. Obviously then in the back line, pretty similar, Dale Ford, Leon Randall, etc. So yeah, I think Carmarthen definitely firm favourites, but I wouldn't be too surprised to see Llanelli get the victory, but I think Carmarthen will be really disappointed, and I think that'll be a massive blow going into the playoffs if they do lose to Llanelli this weekend. Moving on to the second game then, and big clash at the top of the table in the Western Conference. Llandovery, hosting Aberavon. Yeah, there's a massive game in there. Winner takes all at the top of the table. Not too disappointing if you do lose, because obviously second place still in the playoffs. So you just get a little bit of a harder draw. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this one?
I'll be honest with you, I couldn't call it. I really do think this game could go either way. You know, Abraham in the pole position at the top, but Llandovery at home, having beat Aberravon early on in the season, you know, they all want to be doing a double. Aberravon want to hit back and show that they're a good side. So I think it'll be a cracking game. To be honest, you know, two top Premiership sides going at it, and it'll be a great encounter to watch for all the fans that do go there.
Yeah, it's very much just who turns up on the day, isn't it? And yeah, really looking forward to that one. And obviously, we can't get down there, but very much looking forward to hopefully having a look at that one on the replay, because I just hope it lives up to the billing really, and I hope both sides do go there to play entertaining rugby, because I'm sure they will, because we know like Ross and Jason and sort of the philosophies they have with their teams, and they won't be holding anything back. Or you'd like to think they won't be holding anything back for the playoffs, because they want to try and win every game, and they want to be both putting a marker out for them. Llandovery, massive for them. If they can beat Aberavon this weekend and go in as top seed above Aberavon, I think I think on the podcast we probably haven't given Llandovery a fair shout really. I think we know how good Aberavon have been, and we've expected them to take control of this group, which they have, and we've been expecting them to win. And I think if Llandovery can beat Aberavon this weekend and obviously go top of the Western Conference, I think they're the favourites then for the whole competition. I think these two teams have been the outstanding teams. It'll just be interesting to see how they got on against their Eastern Conference rivals then in Newport v Cardiff, and there'll be some cracking ties coming up in the playoffs. Like no matter how that way game goes tomorrow.
Yeah, I think Llandovery one of those sides who turn up on the big occasions. The away to Aberfan early on in the season, a cracking win. When they hosted Quins, I think they beat the Quins to 0. Some massive results in there against top sides. And yeah, maybe we haven't spoken about them as much as we have Aberfan. But you've got to say, I must agree with you the way Llandovery come away with the win this weekend. I would fancy them, and I'd even fancy them to go and win the Premiership the way they're playing so far this season.
Yeah. They're another one of those teams as well, like Aberfan and like Cardiff, that the strength and depth they've got is just unbelievable. And there's players that come in for Llandovery that sort of aren't household names necessarily in the Premiership, but it's just whoever they bring in seems to perform really well. And I don't know whether that's an environment thing or an influence that Ross has on the team. Just whoever comes in to play for Llandovery, it just seems to have a good game, and it's obvious by the amount of mentions we get for different players for Llandovery for a team of the week. They're all always different players and players that maybe didn't play the last 2 weeks and then come in and put in man of the match performances or good performances, and then obviously mix that with their experienced heads, the likes of like Lee Reese, that he's been on the bench the last few weeks because they've obviously had like Dav Land, Scott Maynard's played at scrum half. They got terrific strength and depth everywhere, really.
Yeah, and we spoke to Ross a few times over the season, and I think, like we said, what he's built there, or maybe the culture and the way everyone's built into what they're trying to achieve is brilliant. Because they said if Lee Reese is not playing, he said Maynard's playing, or Dallan, like anyone who steps in, they want to play for Llandovery. They want to wear that shirt, and they want to, they want to perform for their fans. And credit to them. I think the whole environment, the fans, the team, the coaching staff, they're all together, and they're all trying to achieve the same thing, and they're on their way to that.
Yeah, and moving on to the last game then in the Western Conference next weekend, the last game of this year's Premiership Cup before the playoffs. And this is probably the one I'm most looking forward to, actually, maybe even more than Llandovery v Aberfan, sorry. Swansea hosting Bridgend at St Helens, massive game and another winner takes all. And I'm just looking forward to it because both sides have shown some real quality throughout the season, but then both sides have shown that they have got some weaknesses as well. So I just think it'll be a really entertaining game, and I think it's impossible to call, really. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'll be totally honest. There's pressure on both sides going into it. And I do think it'll be whoever handles the occasion best, whoever handles the pressure best. The Swansea side, obviously, it hasn't come out yet. I know it's out later this evening. But you look at Virginia, they brought Matthew Jones back in at 10, and I think it's a big move for them. Just the experience, maybe the calm head. They'll need it in a big occasion like this. Zach will just go back, Alan Evans coming in to join him. Chris Williams a 9. But then there's a bit of flair in the back line. Nice to see Tommy Morgan back after going off injured a few weeks ago with Joe Catt in the centre. And then you've got the likes of Ed Howley, Kay Moulton in the back three who can, create some lovely tries and so on. But yeah, I think maybe there'll be a bit more pressure on Bridgend than there is Swansea, just because I think Swansea will have a few more youngsters out, maybe a couple more Space Boys playing. Or Bridgend, they built a big squad this year. They brought a lot of new faces in. So I think it'll be a bit of an underachievement if they maybe don't qualify for the quarterfinals.
Yeah, you mentioned the Ospreys youngsters. I know Harvey Nash and Tom Florence are back on the bench for Bridgend. Are you surprised to see maybe not so many youngsters back in the starting team, or is that showing that Jabba's obviously trusting in his experienced heads?
Yeah, I think obviously Jabba does trust his squad, and he's got that squad there for a reason. But at the same time, yeah, I think they will miss a couple of other youngsters. Maybe Strongy not there. No Ben Warren or Garen Phillips maybe up front and so on. But at the end of the day, like we say, we always say this: the Premiership's for building platforms for these young boys, and they've had the A-team games the last few weeks. I know quite a few of them have stood out and impressed. So, you know, they've deserved chances with the Ospreys, and maybe a couple are travelling, maybe reserves for the Ospreys tonight away to Connaught. So, you know, it'll be disappointing. I think Bridgend will be a bit disappointed not to have them, but at the same time, they'll be pleased these boys are getting opportunities at the senior level.
Yeah, and obviously Swansea squad not out yet, but yeah, we'll just have to see how they go as well. Like, will they have the likes of like Ocean Knott and Callum Carson available to them? So yeah, that'll be interesting to see. And yeah, like you mentioned, they'll have Dirksen in there. They'll have some experienced heads as well. James Davis, the outside half, will be in there. So yeah, it'll be a real tight game, and I think a lot will come down to sort of who's available for Swansea, because I think their squad's maybe not as broad as Bridgend's is. With they don't have as many experienced heads to call on, so I think they will rely on getting some of those Ospreys players in. But yeah, we'll see how that game goes. That's going to be a really entertaining one, whatever happens down at St Helens. And I know Haydn Thomas is going to be down there covering the game for us for the Welsh Prem Pod social medias, and producing a match report on that one as well. So yeah, I look forward to that one. And before we sign off, then I'm just going to ask you for your Eastern Conference, your top four in order.
I'll go Newport, the top here. I think they're in the pole position and the way they're playing. Cardiff, obviously, just behind them in second. Merthyr, and then I'm going to go for it, say RGC. I think they deserve it after the last few weeks in fourth.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you on that one, purely because I can't see Newport losing to Ebervale. I think Cardiff will probably pit Merthyr, but I can't see either way. I can't see Newport losing to Ebervale. So I think Newport, Cardiff, Merthyr, and then yeah, I see RGC coming out on top, as I mentioned earlier. I can't see. Well, I can see Pontypridd going there and winning quite easily, but I think on balance and off recent performances, RGC obviously off the back of a massive away win at Ebervale, sorry, and Ponty off the back of a disappointing home loss to Cardiff, only scoring 6 points. So yeah, I'd go with that one. And then I'll start us off in the Western Conference then, and I'll put my neck on the line. I'll say Llandovery to beat Aberavon this weekend. Llandovery top, Aberavon then in second, Carmarthen, and I think I'll finish with Bridgend then in fourth.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there, Llandovery. I do fancy them, and you know they're deserving of it if they do get it. In top, Aberavon obviously will be behind in second, Quins in third. I think I'll get in trouble if I don't say Bridgend in fourth. So no, I think Bridgend got a good chance, but yeah, it'll be a tight one there.
I feel guilty because I've said Aberavon to win Western Conference all season long, and now it comes down to the last day, and I'm switching allegiances. So yeah, so sorry, Aberavon fans, if you beat Llandovery tomorrow, which obviously is it's just whoever comes out tomorrow in there, and it'll be a fantastic game. And if Aberavon win, I won't be in the slightest bit surprised. So especially now that I've predicted Llandovery to win, so it's going to be the opposite to happen, really, isn't it?
Watch out now in case you get in any trouble on social media.
All right then, that's all for today then, and we'll be back next Wednesday, won't we, with another guest. So have a look, keep an eye out on our social medias to find out who that guest will be, and we'll be back next Friday where we'll be reviewing some of these games and looking ahead to the playoffs and the Premiership season as well. So looking forward to that one. Thanks to our sponsors again at Lecker Foods Co. Sponsoring these weekly preview review shows. And yeah, we'll see you next Wednesday then. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.